My name is Hannah Cole, and I just turned 18. At my birthday party last night, my dad pulled me aside, his hand resting a little too firmly on my shoulder, and whispered, "When this is over, you're going to sign some papers for Uncle Marcus. Just a formality." I smiled. I nodded. Then I walked into the kitchen, opened my laptop, and did something they would never see coming. I transferred every dollar of my grandparents' multi-million-dollar inheritance, every account, every asset into an irrevocable trust, just in case. The next morning, everything exploded. My parents stood in the living room, staring at documents they didn't understand. Voices rising, confusion turning into panic. My younger sister hovered behind them, silent for once. The lake house, the savings, the investments, everything was locked behind a legal wall they couldn't break. My dad went pale. My uncle, who had already signed a deal to sell property he didn't even own, called his lawyer before breakfast. And just like that, their plan collapsed. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe that greed always comes with a price. I'd also love to know where you're listening from and how old you are. And just a quick note, this story is fictional, with some elements enhanced by AI. It's created for entertainment and reflection, not to represent or target any real person or organization. Now, let me take you back 6 years, back to a summer at Silverwood Lake, back to something my grandfather said that I didn't understand until last night. I was 12 when my grandfather, Arthur Cole, picked me up in his old pickup truck and drove me nearly an hour out to the lake. The cabin sat tucked away behind tall cedar trees, so dense they swallowed the sunlight by late afternoon. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The screen door stuck if you didn't lift it just right. The air smelled like wood smoke, old paper, and something warm I could never quite name. "Grab the other end," Grandpa said. Lifting a weathered fence rail, I did. We spent the whole morning replacing rotted posts along the southern edge of the property. He didn't rush me. He showed me how to press my thumb into the wood, how to feel for weakness instead of just looking for it. "If it gives," he said, "it's already gone, inside." My grandmother, Eleanor, had iced tea and sandwiches waiting on the kitchen table, the one Grandpa had built with his own hands the year they got married. She was sitting on the porch reading when we came back, and she smiled, patting the chair beside her. We sat together, watching the lake turn gold as the sun dipped lower. That evening, Grandpa wiped the sawdust from his hands and said something I didn't fully understand. "This place stays in the family, Hannah." Then he paused. "But family isn't always blood. Family is whoever shows up." I thought he was just being poetic. I was 12. I didn't know he was being precise. All that summer, I kept coming back. Every weekend, I learned how to fix things most people never notice: the small leaks, the stubborn windows, the quiet problems that get worse if you ignore them. In October, Grandma taught me how to arrange the bookshelves by color because, she said, it made the room feel warmer. Grandpa showed me the property lines, old metal stakes he had hammered into the ground himself decades ago. What I didn't know was that he was already planning for all of this, for the cabin, for the future, for me, back home. Everything felt different. Our house in Brookhaven was fine. 3 bedrooms, a yard that needed mowing, a garage my dad used as an office for his supply business. Fine, but not warm, just fine. My sister, Lila, was 10 and she had the bigger bedroom, newly redecorated, that spring soft purple walls, expensive lighting, furniture that cost more than everything in my room combined. Meanwhile, my carpet was still the same one the previous owners had left behind, and somehow, that difference said more than anyone ever admitted out loud. My room still had the same worn carpet the previous owners had left behind. Nothing ever changed in there. That night at dinner, my dad brought up the cabin again. He cut into his steak like he was making a business decision, not having a conversation. That place is just sitting there losing value, he said. Property taxes alone are draining us. We should sell it and reinvest. My mom nodded immediately. It's the practical choice. I looked up from my plate. Grandpa said the cabin stays in the family. My dad laughed. Not harsh. Not loud. Just dismissive. You were 12. Hannah. He was being sentimental. That was it. No one asked what I thought after that. The conversation shifted to my sister Lila and her debate trophy. Regional finalist. My mom had already framed it and placed it in the living room. 2 weeks earlier, I had won the district science fair. The ribbon was still sitting in my backpack. After dinner, I cleared the plates in silence. On the counter, half hidden under a grocery list, I noticed a glossy flyer. Lake Crest Development. Premium lakefront lots. Now acquiring. There was a phone number scribbled in the margin. Not my dad's handwriting. I stared at it for a second, then placed it back exactly where I found it. Upstairs. I sat on my bed and thought about the cabin, about the table my grandfather had built with his own hands, about my grandmother setting my sandwich down without asking what I wanted, because she already knew. And downstairs, someone was already turning that place into numbers. 2 years later, my grandfather died. I was 14. The funeral was quiet and gray. Folding chairs sank slightly into the damp grass. I sat in the second row, holding his old handkerchief, the fabric worn thin, still faintly smelling like pine. At the reception, I saw my dad and my Uncle Marcus standing near the dessert table. They weren't eating. They were talking in low voices. Uncle Marcus had a folder tucked under his arm. My dad kept nodding. I only caught one sentence. We should move on this before probate gets complicated. They were talking about the cabin. At his funeral. I said nothing. I was 14. I had no voice, no control, and no idea that my grandfather had already seen this coming. 2 years passed. I was 16 when my grandmother got sick. It happened fast. By June, she was gone. The last time I saw her, she held my hand tightly, stronger than I expected. The cabin is yours. Hannah, she whispered. Don't let them take it. Promise me, I promise. She squeezed my hand once, and then she was gone. After the funeral, the same gray sky, the same folding chairs. My dad sat at the kitchen table and exhaled like a burden had been lifted. Now we can finally sort out the property, he said to my mom. Relief. That's what I heard. That night, Uncle Marcus called. I stood in the hallway, holding a glass of water, listening to my dad pace in the garage. Yeah, I agree. Let's get it moving. His voice was lighter than it had been in weeks, and in that moment, something settled in my chest. My grandmother's death wasn't a loss to them. It was an opportunity. I didn't cry that night. Instead, I made a decision. I just didn't know yet how I was going to carry it out. If you think my parents were right to try and sell something that was never theirs, just to solve their own problems, then comment right. But if you believe greed should never come before trust, promises, and family, then comment greedy people. Sometimes the hardest truth is realizing who values money more than you. From 16 to almost 18. The cabin became my quiet form of resistance. Every Saturday morning, I drove out to Silverwood Lake in a used Honda I had bought with babysitting money. I fixed things no one else cared about. I patched the porch screen. I replaced the worn seal on the back door. I swept pine needles off the roof because my grandfather had taught me that was how leaks began. At home, the language started to change. The cabin stopped being Grandpa's place and became the family property. My dad said it casually at dinner, like it had always belonged to him. Uncle Marcus started showing up more often, every other Sunday, sometimes with folders, sometimes with his laptop open, scrolling through real estate listings like he was already halfway through selling it. I tried to speak up once. What about Grandma's wish she wanted me to keep it? My mom set her fork down gently, the same way she did before correcting Lila. Your grandmother was emotional at the end. Hannah, this is business. Business. That word replaced everything that used to mean something. By the time I was 17, my dad stopped pretending. When you turn 18, we'll figure this out as a family. The way he said family told me everything. It meant his decision. One cold afternoon in November, I was alone at the cabin, cleaning out the hallway closet behind a stack of old blankets. I found a sealed envelope. My name was written on the front in my grandmother's handwriting. Inside was a single business card, Elizabeth Warren, attorney at law. Underneath, in small print, Cole Family Trust. My hands trembled. Not from fear, but from understanding. She had left this for me. She knew I would be the one to find it. Not my dad. Not Uncle Marcus. Me. I slipped the card into my wallet and said nothing. I didn't call. Not yet. 3 months before my 18th birthday. She called me first. It was a Thursday evening in February. I was in my room working on calculus homework when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Hannah. This is Elizabeth Warren. I was your grandparents' attorney. Her voice was calm and measured, like she had practiced this moment. I need to speak with you before your birthday. There are things you need to know, and there isn't much time. That Saturday, I went to her office alone. She was in her late 50s. Silver hair pulled back, glasses resting on a thin chain. Her office was small, quiet, filled with the scent of paper and coffee. She opened a folder and looked at me. Your grandparents hired me 6 years ago. She said, they created an irrevocable trust. She paused. The cabin, their savings, and their investments. Total value just over $2 million. My breath caught. You are the sole beneficiary. The room shifted slightly around me. My grandparents hadn't just left me memories. They had left me everything. She explained everything clearly, like she knew this moment mattered. Your grandparents transferred all assets into the trust while they were still alive, Elizabeth said. Legally. It never became part of their estate. It cannot go through probate. Your father and your uncle have no claim. She slid a document toward me, a clean summary of the trust. My name sat there on the second line. Undeniable. The cabin title was recorded under the trust 6 years ago. She continued. Your father doesn't know that. I stared at it, trying to process. Why didn't they tell him? Elizabeth paused before answering. Your grandfather believed his sons would sell the cabin immediately. Those were his exact words. The silence that followed felt heavy. I didn't defend my parents. I couldn't. There's one more thing, she added. Someone has been checking the title at the county office recently. After that, I started paying attention quietly. The next Sunday, Uncle Marcus came over again. After dinner, he and my dad went into the garage. The door didn't fully close. I stood just close enough to hear. I already signed the purchase agreement. Marcus said, $450,000, but we need a clean title before closing. My dad asked. How do we get that quitclaim deed? Marcus replied immediately. Mom and Dad are gone. We're the heirs. We transfer it to ourselves. Record it. Then sell. A short pause. Is that legal? It's standard. No one will question it. Then my dad lowered his voice. What about Hannah? My chest tightened. Marcus answered without hesitation. She's 17. She can't do anything. By the time she turns 18, the deal will be done. We'll give her something. $50,000 for college. She should be grateful. I stepped away slowly. My hands were freezing. He had already signed a deal. $450,000. For something he didn't own. That night, I texted Elizabeth. They're moving faster. She replied within minutes. I expected that. Come see me Saturday. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, in the next room. Lila was laughing at a show. Downstairs. My parents talked like everything was normal, and in the garage. There was a contract that meant nothing. They just didn't know it yet. Saturday morning, Elizabeth laid everything out like a plan. The title is already in the trust, she said. If your uncle files anything, it should be rejected. She paused, then added carefully. Unless he tries something more aggressive, fraudulent documents could create complications. I leaned forward. So I need to act first. You need to act on time. She tapped the calendar. The moment you turn 18, you become a legal adult. That is when you can formally take control of the trust. Elizabeth leaned forward slightly, her voice calm but firm. Once you sign, I will file a lis pendens. It's a public notice of legal interest, the moment it's recorded at the county office. The title is frozen. No one can file anything against the property. I nodded slowly. What do I need to do? Show up. Sign one document. I'll handle everything else. I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. Should I tell my parents? She removed her glasses and looked at me directly. Your grandfather asked me to protect you, Hannah, not to negotiate with them. That answer stayed with me all the way home when I walked into the kitchen. My dad was unusually cheerful. Good news. He said, I'm throwing you a birthday party. Big one. Saturday night. Whole family. My mom smiled. Lila clapped excitedly. I smiled too. My father was planning a celebration. My uncle was planning a sale. And I sat there pretending everything was normal, knowing that in 9 days, everything would change. That night, lying in bed, was harder than I expected. Part of me wanted to go downstairs and tell him the truth, to say I knew everything. But I didn't. Because if they knew, they would find another way. So I stayed quiet, and I waited. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stay silent to protect yourself? Even when every part of you wanted to speak, if you have, you understand exactly how that feels. 5 days before my birthday, my mom sat down next to me on the couch. Her tone was soft, careful, rehearsed. Now that you're almost 18, she said, there are some family decisions we need to make together. Together. The word felt hollow. The cabin costs money. She continued. Taxes, repairs, insurance. Your dad's business has been struggling. If we sell, we can pay off debt and set up a college fund for both you and Lila. Grandma wanted me to keep it, I said. Her expression tightened for just a second before smoothing over. She was emotional at the end. Hannah. But emotions don't pay bills? Right on cue. My dad walked in. I've already spoken to a buyer, he said casually. Good offer. Fair deal. Who's the buyer? He hesitated. A development company? Marcus knows them. What company? Another pause. Something like Lakecrest. They're solid. I didn't push. I'll think about it, I said. He smiled and patted my shoulder. That's my girl. Later that night, Lila knocked on my door. She sat at the edge of my bed, quietly picking at a loose thread. Mom and Dad keep talking about the cabin at night, she said. After they think I'm asleep. I looked at her. They sound different. She added, like, excited, but also nervous. Different how she hesitated, like they're planning something. I pulled the blanket over her feet. Don't worry about it, I said gently. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't believe me. I had said I would think about it, but that wasn't a yes. And they knew it, which meant they weren't going to stop pushing. 3 days before my birthday, Uncle Marcus showed up without warning. He caught me in the driveway as I was getting out of the car with groceries. Casual clothes, relaxed posture, leaning against his car like he had just happened to be passing by. But Marcus was a real estate agent. Nothing he did was accidental. Hey, Hannah, he said with a wide smile. Got a minute? We sat on the front steps. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, voice low and confident. Here's the situation. That lake property, just the land alone, is worth around $450,000. I can secure a deal with a buyer I trust. Fast closing, clean paperwork. He paused. And you walk away with $50,000? Cash. For college. I let the number sit there. 50 out of 450. That's a lot of money for someone your age, he added, smiling like he had already won. Most people would jump at that. I looked at him. Whose name is on the deed? Uncle Marcus. His smile flickered for a split second. Just enough to notice. Your grandparents. He said. But they're gone now. It passes to your dad and me. That's not how it works. I knew it. And he knew it too. But he was counting on me not knowing. I'll think about it, I said. Again. He stood up, brushing his hands together like the deal was already done. Don't overthink it. Hannah, opportunities don't wait. He walked back to his car. Before he even reached the end of the street, he was already on the phone. That night, I texted Elizabeth. They're accelerating. Her reply came quickly. Stay the course. 3 more days. 3 days. I could handle 3 days. The night before my birthday, I drove to the cabin alone. The road was quiet. Silverwood Lake lay still under a pale half moon. The trees along the shore looked like shadows cut into the sky. I parked in the gravel lot my grandfather had leveled himself. Walked up the porch steps. The second step still creaked. Exactly the same. I sat in his chair. The air smelled like rain and pine. I opened my email. Elizabeth had sent everything. The acceptance form, the trust confirmation, a full summary, every page marked, organized, waiting for one thing, my signature, at midnight. I read every document carefully, twice. Then I closed my laptop and listened to the lake. I remembered my grandfather sitting in that same chair, saying something I never understood back then. Patience isn't weakness. Hannah, it's timing. I used to think he meant fishing. I didn't anymore. The tears came quietly, not overwhelming, not dramatic, just steady. I wasn't crying because I was scared. I was crying because I wished things were different. I wished my dad had been the kind of man who would sit here with me instead of calculating what this place was worth. I wished my mom had asked what I wanted instead of telling me what made sense. I wished I didn't have to protect myself from my own family, but wishes don't stand up in court. Documents do. I wiped my face, locked the door, and drove home. I lay in bed and set my alarm. In 6 hours, I would be 18. In 7, everything would change. 11:50 p.m. My bedroom door was closed. The house was quiet. My parents had gone to bed. Lila's light was already off. I opened my laptop and joined the call. Elizabeth appeared on the screen, glasses low on her nose, papers spread in front of her. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." Midnight came. "You are now a legal adult," she said calmly. "Let's begin." She guided me through each step, clear and precise. I signed the acceptance form. 1 page, 1 decision. From that moment on, everything in the trust belonged under my authority, with Elizabeth managing it alongside me. She nodded once. "Tomorrow morning, I will file a schliss pendens. Once it is recorded, no one can sell or transfer the property." "What if they already tried?" I asked. "Then it will be flagged. The official record will show the trust from 6 years ago, not your father." And just like that, their plan was already falling apart. They just didn't know it yet. "Any conflicting document will be rejected," Elizabeth said. I looked down at the paper in my hands. My name, signed in ink. My grandparents' names printed just above it. For a second, it didn't feel real. Elizabeth's voice softened. "This isn't a trick, Hannah. This is your grandfather's last gift. You just had to be old enough to accept it." I glanced at the clock on my screen. 12:03 a.m. I was 18. I was the legal beneficiary of the Cole family trust, and somewhere downstairs, in the garage, my uncle's plan had already failed. He just didn't know it yet. Later, I would piece together what happened that same night. While I was signing my documents, Uncle Marcus was sitting in his rented duplex, printing his own, a quitclaim deed, a single page that transfers property from one person to another without guaranteeing ownership. Perfectly legal when used correctly, criminal when it isn't. At 11:30 p.m., he called my dad. "Everything's ready. We file at 9, Marcus said. "The office opens at 8. But I want Hannah distracted with birthday stuff first." My dad hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" "They're gone," Marcus replied. "We're next of kin." It's simple. It wasn't simple. It was fraud dressed up as paperwork. On his laptop. Marcus also had another document open, a purchase agreement with Lakecrest Development, $450,000. Closing scheduled 30 days after the deed was recorded. If he failed to deliver a clean title, he would owe $45,000 in penalties, plus additional damages. He had signed that agreement 2 months earlier, before checking the title, before confirming ownership. He had assumed everything would go his way. He had bet nearly $500,000 on something that was never his, and in less than 9 hours, he was going to find out. The next afternoon, my birthday party started at 4. The house was full. Maybe 20 people. Neighbors, my parents' friends, a couple of my dad's old business contacts, Lila's friends and their families, and one familiar face, Mrs. Harper from the cabin next door. She stood by the window, holding a glass of lemonade, watching everything with sharp, knowing eyes. The kind of look that said she already sensed something wasn't right. I smiled, greeted guests, said thank you. But inside, I was counting down, not to the party, to what had already happened that morning. There were balloons tied along the walls, a silver banner hanging above the window that read, "Happy 18th," and a cake from the bakery downtown sitting in the center of the table. The house was full of voices, laughter, and the kind of celebration that looked perfect from the outside. I smiled. I thanked everyone. I opened small gifts, a notebook, a gift card, a picture frame. In my jacket pocket, folded neatly, was the document I had signed the night before. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. It had already done its job. My dad stood up near the table and tapped his glass. The room quieted almost immediately. I just want to say, Hannah is officially an adult today, he said. Your mother and I are very proud of her. He paused, scanning the room. And as a family, we have some exciting plans ahead. He looked straight at me. Right, Hannah. Every face turned toward me. Thanks, Dad, I said. Nothing more. He waited a second, then laughed it off and raised his glass. The room followed, and conversation slowly returned. From the corner of my eye, I saw Uncle Marcus near the door, staring down at his phone, typing quickly, his expression tight. Mrs. Harper caught my arm as I passed by the window. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You should know something, she said. I saw your uncle at the cabin last week. He had 2 men with him. They were measuring the land. I felt something settle inside me. He had already shown the property, before he even owned it. After the cake was cut and plates were passed around, my dad stood up again. This time, his voice was louder, more deliberate. Before we wrap up, he said, I want to share something important. He placed a hand on my mom's shoulder. Our family has been going through a difficult time financially. Some of you already know about the business. There were quiet murmurs around the room, but my parents left us something valuable. The lake house at Silverwood. He paused. And as a family, we've decided to sell it. It's the best way to secure our future. The words hit like cold water. He was announcing it publicly, like it was already done. He looked at me again. Hannah understands. She knows this is what's best. Right. The room went still. Neighbors who had known me since I was a child. My sister half hidden behind the couch. Mrs. Harper watching closely. My mom smiled. This is what families do, she added. We sacrifice for each other. I set my fork down. The small sound echoed in the silence. I never agreed to sell the cabin, I said. My dad's smile didn't disappear, but something behind it tightened. She's joking, he said lightly. Birthday nerves? I'm not joking. Uncle Marcus stepped forward. Come on, Hannah. This isn't the time. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip, and set it back down. You're right, I said calmly. This isn't the time. I looked directly at him. The time is 8 a.m. tomorrow. No one moved. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but he didn't check it. One by one, guests began to leave. Quiet goodbyes, polite smiles, the kind people give when they sense something breaking beneath the surface. Within half an hour, the house was almost empty. Only family remained. My mom waited until the door closed, then turned toward me, her voice tight. Do you have any idea what your father is going through? He could lose this house. I met her eyes. And you want to fix that by taking something that isn't yours. She stepped closer. We are a family. We make decisions together. And if you loved us, she added, you wouldn't need a lawyer. The word hung in the air. I felt something drop in my chest. How do you know about a lawyer? She didn't hesitate. Marcus found the business card in your bag. For a moment, I didn't feel anger, just clarity. They had gone through my things, searching, planning, before I could respond. Mrs. Harper's voice came from the doorway. She has every right to speak to a lawyer. My mom turned sharply. This is a private matter. Mrs. Harper didn't move. Your mother would have wanted her protected. The silence that followed felt sharp enough to cut. Mrs. Harper left soon after. The last neighbors followed. Now it was just us. My dad pulled out a chair and sat down slowly, folding his hands. Here's what's going to happen, he said. Tomorrow morning, Marcus and I will file the paperwork. The cabin will be sold. You'll get your share. I looked at him. How much is my share? He didn't answer. Uncle Marcus did. 50,000. I held his gaze. Out of how much silence? Then I turned back to my dad. And if I say no? If you fight this? You're on your own, my dad said, his voice low and final. No help with college. No more living under this roof. The kitchen went completely still. A single drop of water fell from the faucet. You're threatening to kick me out on my 18th birthday. I said, I'm asking you to choose this family. I pushed my chair back and stood up. My hands were shaking, but my voice didn't. I am choosing this family. I said, I'm choosing the part that keeps its promises. I walked past Uncle Marcus, past Lila, sitting on the stairs, hugging her knees, watching everything like she didn't understand but knew something was wrong. I went upstairs, closed my door, and sat on my bed. My dad thought his deadline was 9 in the morning. He didn't know Elizabeth's deadline was 8. I held the document I had already signed. My dad had just told me I didn't belong if I didn't give up something that was legally mine. My mom said I didn't love them. My uncle was preparing to file a document he had no right to file, and all I could think was this. My grandmother had known. She had seen exactly who they would become when money was involved, and she had prepared for it years in advance. The next morning, at 8 o'clock, the county recorder's office opened. Elizabeth was already there, gray blazer, leather folder in hand. She walked straight to the counter and presented 2 documents. A certified copy of the Cole Family Trust and a lice pendens notice. The clerk reviewed everything, checked the records, and stamped it filed. Done. From that moment on, the property was protected. At 8:14, my phone buzzed. It's done, Elizabeth said. The title is flagged. Anything they try to file will be rejected. I was sitting at the kitchen table, eating cereal. Upstairs, my dad was getting dressed. My mom was making coffee. Everything sounded normal. At 8:30, they came downstairs together. My dad wore a button-down shirt, the one he used to wear to important meetings. Uncle Marcus held his usual folder. We'll be back by lunch. My dad said. I looked up. Good luck. He paused in the doorway, studying me for a second, then left. I washed my bowl, dried it, put it away, and waited. I never saw their faces when it happened, but I know exactly how it went. Elizabeth stayed at the office on purpose. At 9:05, Uncle Marcus walked up to the counter. Confident, relaxed, like everything was already done. He slid the document forward. The clerk entered the parcel number, read the screen, typed again, then stopped. I can't record this document, she said. Marcus leaned forward. Excuse me, the property is held under the Cole Family Trust, she replied. Recorded 6 years ago. There is also a lis pendens filed this morning. That's not possible, Marcus said quickly. My parents owned that property. The title was transferred years ago. The clerk said calmly. The chain of ownership is clear. This document does not match. My dad stepped forward. There's no trust. We were never told about any trust. The clerk looked at both of them. I suggest you speak with the trustee listed on the filing. She turned the screen slightly. Elizabeth Warren. Marcus's hand flattened against the counter. The color drained from his face. That name, the one they had found in my bag, was now part of the official record. There was no undoing it. My dad turned slowly toward him. You said this was simple? Marcus swallowed. I didn't know about the trust. My dad's voice hardened. You sell properties for a living, and you didn't check the title. How did you not check the title first? My dad's voice cut sharper than anything I had ever heard from him. Uncle Marcus opened his mouth, then closed it. Tried again. Nothing came out. The clerk spoke calmly. "Gentlemen, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside if there's a disagreement." They didn't argue after that. They couldn't. Elizabeth was sitting in the waiting area, watching them walk out. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The call came at 9:22 a.m. I was sitting on the porch, watching the neighbor's sprinkler sweep back and forth across the lawn. "What did you do?" My dad's voice was tight, almost shaking. I could hear traffic behind him. He was still in the parking lot. I accepted what Grandpa and Grandma left me. I said, "That's all." "You went behind our backs," he snapped. "With some lawyer we've never even heard of. Elizabeth Warren has been their attorney for 6 years. You just never asked." Silence. Heavy breathing on the other end. "This was my parents' property," he said finally. "I'm their son. They would have left it to me." I kept my voice steady. "They didn't trust you with it." The silence that followed stretched longer than anything I had ever experienced. I counted the sprinkler arcs. 1, 2, 3. "We'll fight this," he said. "You can try." I replied, "The trust is irrevocable. No one can undo it. Not even me." "You don't know what you're talking about." "I've had 3 months to learn." The line went dead. No goodbye, just silence. I lowered the phone slowly. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from the weight of what I had just said, from realizing the man who taught me to ride a bike was the same man who had tried to take something that wasn't his. I sat there until the shaking stopped. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Miss Cole, this is Daniel Brooks from Lakecrest Development. We need to speak." His voice was fast, precise, already calculating. "We have a purchase agreement with Marcus Cole for the Silverwood property. He guaranteed clean title. We've just been informed there's a LIS pendants filed." "That's correct," I said. "Can you explain the situation?" "My uncle does not own that property. He never did. It's been held in an irrevocable trust for 6 years. I'm the sole beneficiary." There was a pause. Papers shifting. He represented himself as the heir. I understand. But representation doesn't create ownership. Another pause. "Is there any possibility you would consider selling? We are prepared to make a competitive offer directly. The property is not for sale." A longer silence. "Understood," he said, his tone hardening slightly. "Then we will be pursuing action against Mr. Cole." I gave him Elizabeth's contact. Within the hour, she confirmed everything to their legal team. The trust was valid. Marcus had no authority. The agreement had been signed under false representation. Lakecrest acted immediately. They were suing him. $45,000 in penalties, plus damages. That afternoon, Elizabeth called again. "There's something else," she said carefully. "The document your uncle tried to file included a notary stamp. It doesn't match any registered notary in the county." I closed my eyes. "So it's fake?" "Yes. That's a felony, isn't it? In this state?" "Yes. My uncle hadn't just tried to take the cabin. He had broken the law to do it." At 2:00, the front door opened. My dad walked in. Slowly, like he was carrying something heavy no one else could see. My mom stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, her face still flushed from crying. I sat at the dining table, and for the first time, no one pretended anymore. I didn't move when my dad sat down across from me. He stared at the table for a long time before speaking. "I'm going to lose this house," he said. His voice was flat, almost empty. "The bank is after me for $180,000. The business is gone. That cabin was supposed to save us." I looked at him. "I know things are hard, Dad. I'm sorry about the business. Then help us. The cabin was never your solution, I said quietly. It was their gift to me. A gift. He almost laughed. For what, you're 18. What do you need with a lake house? It's not about what I need. It's about what they wanted. My mom stepped in from the kitchen. They were old. Hannah. They weren't thinking clearly. They were clear enough to hire a lawyer 6 years before they passed. My dad slammed his hand on the table. I'll contest the trust. A voice answered before I could. Mr. Cole? Elizabeth. I had called her before he walked in and left the line open. This trust was established years ago. She continued calmly. It is legally sound, fully documented, and witnessed. Contesting it will cost more in legal fees than the property is worth. I strongly advise against it. Silence filled the room. My dad looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time, I saw something different. Not anger, understanding. 2 hours later. The phone rang. My dad answered in the living room. I stood in the hallway, listening. They're suing me, Uncle Marcus said. His voice sounded raw. 45,000 in penalties, plus damages. They're saying it's fraud. My dad's voice was colder than I had ever heard it. Is it? I thought we owned it. You're a real estate agent. My dad said, you check titles for a living. How did you not check this one? I assumed. You assumed. A pause. You wanted the money too, Marcus added weakly. But I didn't forge a notary stamp. My dad replied. Silence. I didn't forge it, Marcus said. I just used one. That is forgery. My dad said. You know that. Marcus's breathing grew heavier. I need a lawyer. So do I. My dad said. Then he added, don't call this house again until you have one. He hung up. I heard him sit down. The couch creaked. Then nothing. I went upstairs. Lila was sitting on her bed, headphones around her neck, eyes wide. Is Uncle Marcus in trouble? She asked. Yes. She hesitated. What about Dad? I sat beside her. He made bad choices. I said, but Uncle Marcus made worse ones. Lila nodded slowly, trying to understand. Not fully grasping it, but sensing enough to be afraid. I left her room and went to mine. I sat by the window and stared out at the street. A dog walker passed by. A sprinkler hissed across the lawn. Everything looked normal, but nothing felt normal. I didn't feel like I had won. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt like someone who had just walked through fire and hadn't looked back yet to see what was burned. Over the next 3 weeks, everything started to unfold, one piece at a time. Lakecrest Development filed a lawsuit against Uncle Marcus. Breach of contract, misrepresentation, 45,000 in penalties, plus tens of thousands more in damages and legal fees. The paperwork arrived at his duplex on a Tuesday. He signed for it himself. At the same time, the county referred his forged document to the district attorney's office. An investigation was opened. His real estate license was suspended almost immediately, which meant his income stopped. In a small town, news doesn't stay quiet. Not because I told anyone. I didn't. But legal filings are public. And the lawsuit named the Silverwood property directly. People noticed. By the second week, everyone knew some version of the story. At the grocery store, at church, at the gas station. The version they told was simple. 2 brothers tried to sell something that wasn't theirs, and the granddaughter stopped them. Some people said I was strong. Some said I was cold. I didn't correct either of them. Uncle Marcus called me once. Hannah. Please, he said. His voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. Ask your lawyer to remove the filing, if the title clears. I might be able to negotiate with Lakecrest. Reduce what I owe. The filing protects my property. I said. It stays. Your grandparents would be ashamed of you. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I answered quietly. They're the ones who set this up. They chose this. They chose me. He hung up. I placed my phone down and looked at the framed photo on my desk. Me and my grandfather, standing beside the fence we built together. I didn't move it. My dad never challenged the trust. Elizabeth had been right. It was airtight. Instead, he did something he should have done a long time ago. He sold his business at a loss and worked out a payment plan with the bank. We kept the house. Barely. The savings were gone. My mom went back to work for the first time in years, a pharmacy job across town. She said it was to stay busy. No one believed that. No one asked. The house became quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Heavy quiet. The kind that sits in the air and doesn't leave. My dad and I didn't speak for 2 weeks. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper stopped by with a pie. Still warm. Your parents made their choices, she said, setting it on my desk. But they're still your parents. Don't carry what belongs to them. I nodded. Later that week, Lila called me. She was at a friend's house. I don't understand everything, she said softly. But I'm sorry for what they did to you. My throat tightened. Thanks. Lila. She hesitated. Are you okay? I looked out the window again. I'm getting there. A few weeks later, on a quiet Saturday morning, I drove back to the cabin. The road to Silverwood Lake was lined with blooming dogwoods, soft white and pale pink against the dark water. Everything felt calm again, like nothing had ever happened. I unlocked the door with the same key my grandfather had given me when I was 14, in case you ever need it. He had said. I didn't know then he meant forever. Inside, nothing had changed. The same scent of pine and old books filled the air. The same quiet warmth settled into the walls. I walked through each room slowly. The kitchen table he built was still strong. The bookshelves my grandmother organized were still perfectly arranged. Everything was exactly where it belonged. In the desk by the window. I found an envelope. My name written in my grandfather's handwriting. Elizabeth had told me it would be there. I opened it carefully. A single letter. He wrote that he knew his sons would try to sell the cabin. He didn't blame them. He loved my dad. But he said my dad never understood the difference between something that has value and something that is valuable. He said he chose me because I cared about the place before I cared about what it was worth. The last line stayed with me. Take care of it. It took care of you first. I folded the letter and sat on the porch for a long time, breathing. The following week, Elizabeth called. The Eli's pendants can be removed now. She said, there's no longer any threat to the title. The trust will stand clean. And Marcus, he settled with Lake Crest. He paid the penalty through a loan. The deal is finished. As for the forged document, the investigation is still ongoing. His license remains suspended. I listened quietly. I don't feel relieved. I admitted. That's normal. She said, this wasn't a victory. It was protection. Before hanging up, she added one more thing. Your grandparents set aside an education fund. $50,000. It's been growing for 6 years. It's now just over 58,000. I closed my eyes. 50,000. The same number my dad had offered. The same number Marcus used to try to convince me, but my grandparents had already given it to me, quietly, without conditions. I enrolled in community college that same week. Environmental science, forestry. When I filled out my address, I wrote the cabin. For the first time, It felt like home. I asked my parents to meet me at a small coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. They arrived together. My dad looked older, tired. He was wearing one of my grandfather's old shirts. I waited until our drinks were on the table. "I love you," I said. "Both of you." My mom stiffened slightly, but didn't interrupt. "The cabin is not for sale. Not now. Not ever. I won't feel guilty for keeping a promise." My dad stared at his coffee. "I'm not cutting you out of my life," I continued. "But if we're going to have a relationship, it has to be based on respect. Not money, not pressure." My mom tried to speak. "We just wanted what was best." "Then be honest about what happened," I said. "You tried to sell something that wasn't yours. You went through my things. You threatened me." She fell silent. My dad finally looked up. "I don't know how to fix this," he said quietly. "You don't have to fix it today." I stood up, left money on the table, and walked out. That was enough for now. In May, Lila came to the cabin. She brought pizza and that same oversized hoodie she always wore. We sat on the porch, eating and watching the lake. "I didn't know about any of it," she said. "Was I part of the problem?" I shook my head. "You were just a kid." She nodded and looked out at the water. "It's really beautiful here. It always was." She leaned her head on my shoulder for a moment. "Can I come back sometimes?" "Anytime." We didn't talk about lawsuits or money. We talked about school, about the dock, about fixing things. And for the first time, the cabin felt like more than just something I had protected. It felt like something new could grow there. Early June. I sat on the porch at sunrise, a cup of coffee in my hands. Mist lifted slowly off the lake. The water turned blue as the light came in. I didn't win. There's no winning when the people who hurt you are the ones who are supposed to protect you. But I kept my promise, and I stood on something real. My grandparents couldn't change who my parents were, but they made sure I had a place to stand anyway. And sometimes, that's what love looks like. Quiet, prepared, and strong enough to last. That was my story. Maybe parts of it felt familiar to you. Maybe it stirred something you've been carrying quietly for a long time. If it did, you're not alone. I'd really love to hear your story too. Share it in the comments. You never know who might need to hear it today. Looking back, I realized this story was never just about money or property. It was about knowing your worth, protecting what truly matters, and having the courage to stand firm even when it means standing alone. I learned that love without respect isn't enough, and that keeping a promise can define who you become. If this story spoke to you, then you're someone who values truth, strength, and integrity, and that matters more than anything. If you believe in that too, consider subscribing, leaving a comment to share your thoughts, and liking or sharing this video so more people like you can feel seen and heard.